Okay, we are recording. We are good. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let's continue. Okay, so I think where I had left off was let's see, captions. Show captions. Okay, where I think I had left off was just kind of talking about how all the soft skills were the big things that changed. And I was going to give a couple of examples of like treats others with dignity and respect. I'm going to go for the low hanging fruit here. So, refusing to feed his men because he can't find who's stealing food, lashing more than twice the men he had done on his first two voyages. Um, and then also taking captives, cutting off that chief's ear because he was upset with those people on that island. So like
Wonderful.
obvious. Say that again. What did you say, Don? Okay, let's see here. No, not that.
I said you were going in and out.
I am going in and out. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Yes.
perfect. So, yeah, he had just completely changed as a person. And all of the hard skills are still there, taking risks, and experimenting, even though there's a chance of failure, seeking out challenging opportunities, like that didn't really change for me, but just like really anything that had to deal with how he nurtured his relationships with people, that was like the biggest shift from his first voyage to his third voyage. That's really my input.
So exactly. And what I was likening it to was a very long road trip with kids in the car.
Hmm.
If you look at his first voyage compared to his third voyage,
Mhm.
um, he really doesn't change too much as a leader. What he does is I think he starts running out of patience.
Mhm.
So you have kids sitting in a car, and all of a sudden you hear, Mom, he's touching me, he's touching me. And for
Mhm.
the first like 5 hours, just knock it off. And you can go on, and you can be patient, you can be calm, and usually it'll stop. But then you get to the last 10 hours and you hear, Mom, he's touching me. And you're like, you know what? I've had enough. I told you to stop. I don't care who's touching who. I'll pull this car over and I'll beat your ass.
Yes.
And then it's, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
it's a whole different story. But all along, you're still that person that they know they can count on. I think, yeah, he wasn't feeling good. He he did have some health issues. However, he was still leading his crew
Mhm.
until he just couldn't anymore.
Yeah. So at what point do you feel that someone like to what extent is it his ownership to recognize that he's not in a place to do that anymore?
When he realizes he was getting out of control with his thoughts, his words, and his actions. So even as a parent, the moment you lose control, okay, of your thoughts, actions, words, you need to step back and say, I need a timeout.
Mhm.
Where him as a leader, the moment that he realizes somebody is stealing food and they're not admitting to it, what's different now than in the first trip is he's cutting their rations. They're still not admitting to it. Okay, what's going on here? Is it truly taking place, or is it in his own mind? But I think that's where right then and there he starts the extra floggings. He's cutting their rations. And that right then and there, as the leader, is when you need to step aside, step back, because at that point in time, now you're getting all the distrust from your men, you're getting all the distrust from, the people that you're around, because they no longer look at you as a leader. They're looking at you as somebody who no longer has their best interests at heart, and they can no
Yeah.
longer follow.
I feel like we're kind of like getting into prompt five.
Yep.
Um, so I mean, a great natural segue. So like my examples from voyage one to voyage three, I'll just share this really quickly. On voyage one, well-born gentlemen on the Endeavour regarded this as evidence of native brutishness. Cook took a much more thoughtful and humane view. Being wholly unacquainted, not only with the superfluous but the necessary convenience so sought after in Europe, they are happy not knowing the use of them, he wrote. They live in tranquility, which is not disturbed by the inequality of condition. And then in voyage three, later, enraged at another Polynesian chief, Cook ordered the ship's barber to shave the man's head and cut off his ears. I punished him with greater severity than I had ever done one before. Cook acknowledged in his journal, though he expressed no regret. So we go, like in his condition, in his state, we go from revering people to cutting off their ears.
Yep. And that's my point, is where, like you said, where do we draw the line as a leader to where we need to cut the line and, realize that that position is no longer ours to hold.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
here we have even a bigger question of like, so the framers of our Constitution, I think, kind of had this in mind, right? When they put together checks and balances. Because for Captain Cook, there are no checks and balances. It is an autocracy. He is in charge. You do not question him. And there's no infrastructure, no position, no person to who has the like authority to say, hey, um, so you've lost your mind, and I'm here to put your power in check, and this isn't going to continue. So your behavior, your choices, your actions are a detriment to the crew, the ship, the mission, the team, what have you. So you're not in charge anymore. So the thing is that I think with unchecked power, which is what like Cook would have, it's really hard to know when to not be in charge anymore, especially if you've been doing something for a really long time. And I think of right now, the example I'm thinking
Right.
of is Devil Wears Prada. So Miranda Priestley, Andy thinks she's being ousted, and she goes to like, oh my God, they were like conspiring against you. And then, Miranda handles it, moves people around, and stays as editor in chief of Runway. And they're in the car, they're in Paris, and they're
Yep.
going to the next venue. And she's like, oh, you didn't think I knew? Honey, no one else can do what I do. And so I did what I had to stay in power, and absolutely ended up screwing over
Yep.
Nigel. And that's when Andy was like, okay, I don't want to be part of this anymore. But it's this thing of like when people do something for a really long time and there's like no outside checks and balances, when how are they to know when to quit?
Right.
So,
right. When nobody's willing to call them out on it
or can't.
and or can't, but or they do, but in this leader's mind, everything they did was for the better good.
Yeah.
And they can't see that the total destruction basically of their human soul,
Hmm.
because they're selling out, or they're basically selling it in order for what they believe is moving forward,
Right.
if that makes sense.
It does. You know, the linchpin that you kind of like bring up is like sort of selling out. You know,
Mhm.
I think from where they're sitting, they've never sold out.
Right.
They just can't see. They just can't see the forest for the trees. They just can't see what's happening because when we sit in a place and we're just so convinced, we're just so convinced,
Yep.
that it doesn't matter what's actually happening. Just this thing that we're holding on to, that's what's happening. And so, yeah, I mean, it brings up a lot of really interesting questions. This like,
Yeah.
um,
This story of Cook and his leadership, and and then just reading and everything and doing the PowerPoints, it does. It brings up, when do people realize enough is enough? When are they willing to speak up? Well, like mutiny on the Bounty Kane. It's when the guys on the ships have finally had enough with the captain of the crew and his treatment of the crew, that they actually mutiny. They put him on an
mhm,
island and leave.
yeah,
And you know, I
hmm,
mean, when is enough enough? And when do the people finally say, um, you know what, you're not right, and you're not a true leader? And it, but I don't think people like Cook ever realize what a true leader is, after for so long, because they've, like you said, they've held this position, and they keep moving in that leadership position, that they believe that they're deserving of it, and nobody would ever question them or take them out of that position, because nobody else could do what they do.
yeah. I think what we're trying to unpack has so many nuances to it
Yep.
that we could literally like just string together a whole litany of reasons and scenarios and whatnot. But to simplify, I think kind of what we're uncovering here, it's just really simple.
Hmm.
Ultimately, Cook went from an effective leader to an ineffective leader.
Right.
And we can measure that against the impact that he had on those around him, which by definition is how you determine whether someone is a good leader or a bad leader, i.e., people around you are thriving and growing and being challenged, or people around you are being terrorized and you're cutting their ears off. So there you have it.
Yep, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Between the first and the third voyage, that's where we need to draw the lines and take a look at just the bare bones of what exactly happened. And this is how his leadership went from a high to the low.
Yeah. What were your examples in prompt 5?
Um, this the second one was exactly the same as yours, but the first one, for prompt one on voyage one, my example was when the crewman who early reported frightening rise in water was found to have measured incorrectly. The mistake was no sooner cleared up than upon every man like a charm. They redoubled their vigor at the pumps, and Cook also took counsel from a midshipman, John Monkhouse. So he took his advice. who
Hmm.
once had helped save a sinking ship with a technique known as fathering. They maneuvered the sail, covered the gash, executed it to much of Cook's satisfaction, wrote bestowing one of the highest plaudits in his vocabulary. The rest of the crew also came in for rare praise. No men ever behaved better than they have done on this occasion. And
Yeah.
that right there shows, the praise and him bestowing all of this on these men.
Yeah, I like that example. It's good.
Yeah. But the next one, I had the exact same one where he cut off his ears.
Yeah. Well, that sticks out, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Let's go ahead and if are you okay with moving on to part two of the co-mentoring questions, the second document?
The the what?
The part two, the ASU charter and the leadership challenge. It said, please discuss the ASU charter. It's not long, but it's important. It's the video that we had to watch on the school website. Are you
Okay.
familiar?
I watched it. I wasn't too I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Okay,
Let me pull that up.
sure. I'll just read the prompt really quick. Once you have viewed the web
Yeah.
page and its associated videos, comment on some aspects of the visions that relate to our readings to relate this to your own dreams. So yeah, I figured I'll just share my answer and then you want to share yours?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So accessibility and excellence are the driving values behind the mission of building diverse populations at ASU receiving higher education. And this is driven by the belief that our old models of education do not serve the betterment of our democracy or the betterment of mankind, is like the takeaway from the video. I think that I didn't really relate this to any of our reading. but here's my but here's my
No,
answer.
yeah.
Um the if I were I think in my mind what I was thinking like it's values driven. Um and so in my mind, like everything that we read about so far in our reading, which would probably be more particular to week one, would be
Mhm.
that like our values, our strongly held beliefs are the things that drive us and motivate us to move in a particular direction, especially when it comes to an overarching vision, right? So a vision for an organization, we are headed this way. There is a bigger purpose, and that bigger purpose is driven by the values that those people hold. So accessibility and excellence are the driving values behind the mission of building diverse populations at the ASU receiving higher education. That they're so passionate about like education should be available to everybody. Um, and I kind of really like I was like really vibing with it too. So I just kind of said this as my commentary. I said the democratization of knowledge will save us. It is having access to reliable information that sparks growth and critical thought, which expands our horizons, worldview, and possibilities. Really good information lives behind countless paywalls. And it feels like we live in a social decline as the barriers to education become greater due to declining quality of life, wealth inequality, and income inequality. Controversially, okay, now this is where people are going to not like my opinion, but it's okay. Controversially, I believe, this sounds so contradictory, but hear me out. I believe in the elimination of affirmative action because it does not aim to solve the roots of inequality. It aims to guarantee an outcome. Money, wealth, and resources need to be distributed into all our public educational institutions with the aim of reaching out to our most impoverished, to those who live at the highest risk. If we take a geographical and economical approach to resource distribution and admissions, we will accomplish building diverse populations outside of race because there are already strong relationships that exist between wealth, income, geography, and race. Does that make Makes sense. That's the tangent I went on.
And I agree with you.
Oh, okay, great. I've had a lot of
I
people not agree with me on
believe it or
that.
not, I agree with you. Um,
Yeah.
because and I'll tell you what really confused me, like you, about this part two prompt thing. Like you said, reading the ASU charter, it's all good and done. It's great to have a vision for the school and what you want to do. Um, but I think not only at ASU, but all higher learning um, institutions,
Hmm.
I think need to truly take a look at what they're offering and who they're offering them to and why.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I don't think our readings really had too much to do, like you said, with the ASU charter.
Hmm.
I think it comes, they have good ideas, they have good thoughts, but like and I agree. I think affirmative action is being used as a crutch and not a positive tool. I think it's being used to control numbers and people, and it's not truly doing what people wanted it to do in the first place,
Hmm.
which was truly give people a leg up. Because if you truly wanted him to get a leg up, you wouldn't hide test scores. You wouldn't just pass them along. You wouldn't, you know, not get them the proper help that they need.
Hmm.
And this is what's going on, because with affirmative action, all that was being done was, okay, so with affirmative action, we have to hire these many people, or we need to put these many people into our, we need to get them into our school. Doesn't matter how, just get them in. And I think it was misused. I think the people that truly could have benefited from this were never sought out. Um, as a mother of three kids,
Hmm.
going to college, um, I didn't have a lot of money.
Hmm.
However, because my kids were white, considered middle class, they were considered better than other kids and weren't given the same considerations, such as for scholarships or for money for schools, because I was a white female who was working,
Yeah.
which really ticked me off.
Hmm.
Um, and my daughter, who went to nursing school, um, went and joined the National Guard and did everything she was told. And when it went to get time to get in her second time, the first time she went in to get into the nursing school, took her tests. Um, they didn't have enough spots, but they had just made the cutoff before her and told her, you will be in the next group.
Hmm.
Um, they switched deans, came
Oh.
time for her to get into nursing school, and they said, no, you don't have enough diversity in your background. My daughter
Hmm.
goes, what does that mean?
Hmm.
She wasn't Black. She wasn't
Yeah.
Mexican. So they overlooked her.
Hmm.
Even though she was military, she's serving her country. During COVID, she was actually deployed to the States to do COVID tests, to give out vaccines. I think that people used it as an excuse. And people who had an agenda used it for their own benefit, not for the benefit of the people that it was meant to help. Um,
Okay.
and like you said, that's a tangent. You may not agree with me, but you know, if you look at it from every point of view, we all um, we all could use a
Help.
better vision of how things should work. Not just for a select few, but for everybody.
Okay, so a couple of things come into mind here. So it's kind of like when there's an uprising, right? Like
Mhm.
the revolutionary wars in France, it's like you have the poor, they're mad at the
Yeah.
aristocracy, at the elite. So what do? They have an uprising. So then what does the elite do? They say, all right, let's throw them a bone. Let's give them something.
Let them eat cake.
Yeah, so we're gonna pick a sacrificial lamb. We're gonna send this high up person to the guillotine, cut their head off. It will calm the masses, and then everything can just go back to normal. Kind of the same thing with the Enron scandal, right? Like that CEO, I think, got a $220 million golden parachute, like totally screwed the company,
Yep.
ruined so many lives. So what they do, they just canned him and like, look, justice is served. And then I'm sure there's a lot of regulation and so forth that came as a result of that and whatnot. So it's not as, but I mean, it didn't necessarily fix capitalism though.
Right.
Everything went back to the way it was. So we have these like racial inequalities, right? And there's a long tenured history of major race issues in our country, and I think most reasonable people can agree with that, right? So that someone comes
Right.
up with this idea to guarantee diversity,
Hmm.
but the thing of it is like as well intentioned as some of these ideas are, they're not adapted, they don't evolve. It's
Right.
just sort of the same running model as time goes on, and then it kind of becomes ineffective. But then
Yeah.
the other issue is that it's still exclusionary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
so then it kind of has to become sort of like this thing of like, okay, well, we have to find an answer where people aren't where nobody's limited,
Hmm.
and so interestingly enough, to tie this back into the topic, if ASU has this grand vision
Right.
of like everyone belongs here,
Hmm.
then ipso facto, that means everyone. So you have to have this expansive view of opportunity, which includes everybody.
Right. But to what expense?
But that's just it, though. Like there can't be one.
But there
So
always, but there always is. Because if they're going to include everybody, whether they can afford it or not, okay, there's going to be somebody who pays.
oh, I'm not speaking in terms of money. I'm speaking
Okay.
in terms of merit.
Right, right. But I'm saying, the thing this is all good and done to include everybody, no matter what, you know, what they're deserving of or not.
Sure.
Okay. So because this is what the ASU charter is deeming is their vision to include everybody. Okay.
So
So
is your interpretation of that meaning without standard?
in
So
certain
I
aspects, yeah.
Okay. Well, I certainly finish your point because I think I'm finishing it for you. Let me hear what you have to say.
um, I mean, ASU still has to, and I think for the for the for the good of the student body who is here to learn, and the good of the student body who is paying to learn, okay, whether it
I,
be a lot of money, a little money, whatever it is.
mhm.
If we're going to include everybody, there has to be expectations and
Yeah, you have to be qualified. Like you can't just
right,
not meet the standard. And so yeah, agreed. And you know, if everybody has to pay a little bit of something, like that's that's fine. Um, I guess really the issue, it's like more systemic, right? In that
Mhm.
like this person who didn't get into college because they didn't have the resources, that problem started in infancy.
Yeah. Well, and but I think it's not so much. I think it's like when we started the SATs, the ACTs,
Mm,
we did a huge disservice to a lot of the public because a lot of people, whether they, don't take tests well or they panic when they test and they don't score as high. Um, I think that now they're finding out that even if people test really well on the ACT and SATs, um, they may not be ready for college. And those who test
mm,
low do well in college classes.
mm,
Um, and I think we started a huge disservice in those testing procedures, which then brought about affirmative action because no matter how some of these groups tested, they were still included.
I see. So
Do you know what?
you're well, you're talking about the fact that somebody who qualifies through affirmative action could test lower than someone who's excluded as a result of it. And
Right.
so it's not based on merit. So then the argument becomes, how is that fair? Um, and and so then the argument is that it is not fair. However, the counter argument to that would then be, well, looking at two people, making general assumptions about them. If someone who's squarely middle class had better resources than this person who tested lower, and this person who tested lower grew up in the projects in abject poverty, surrounded by heroin, meth, opioid addiction, probably didn't have parents, probably didn't have pre-K,
Mhm.
you know, the schooling didn't have resources, probably not enough books to go around. How do you justify that? Because how is that person supposed to have the resources to get to that place where they could test higher? So it's this really, it is a complicated conversation.
It
But
is. And I think it bodes for the leadership topic
mhm,
because if you're looking at leadership skills now, okay, and a lot of people look to leaders to have their bachelor's or some kind of schooling,
mhm,
and not just rise up in the ranks naturally.
mhm,
Okay. Um, but then you put affirmative action in there. And
mhm,
now we're looking at companies who are just putting people in certain spots because, and not that are equipped to handle what may come because they may not have the coping mechanisms or skills. You may have a ton of knowledge, book knowledge, or you may have a ton of people knowledge and not have both combined.
mhm,
I think, as leaders, it's something that's very complicated. It's never a win-win when we're looking to create a diverse community. However, we want to create the best community. And then all of a sudden, if it doesn't have enough of one group, but it has too much of another, you may be looked down upon.
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I, you know, to flip that argument, it's on its head. Like, let's let's just say on paper I don't look good, but
Mhm.
I do have that like leading ability. I have a creative problem solving prowess. I just never had the resources, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily less qualified than someone else. I just look different on paper. And so without affirmative action, I would never have the chance. I would never get that shot. I guess you could look at Kanchanji Brown Jackson, for example. or Sonia Sotomayor. They both will tell you like we would have never gotten into Harvard without it. We just simply we just it would have never happened, and then we would not be sitting on the Supreme Court today. And so like you hear stories like that, and you're like, okay, I feel for that. But then I hear stories like yours where your very merited daughter, who was very deserving to get into that nursing school, um, like there's so many ways to cut it that someone is losing out.
Yeah,
It's unfair to somebody always, right?
right.
So I think that's why we haven't really solved a problem. This is why this is an
Well,
ongoing issue.
and I think it's so complicated that it's going to be talked about even 10 to 15 to 20 years from now. And people still will not know what to do because it's a
Well,
complex issue.
I would like to stop you. I have given the answer. I already gave you the solution. No, I'm not joking. When I
Good. Okay, good.
said when money, wealth, and
Yep.
resources need to be distributed into all of our public educational institutions with the aim of reaching our most impoverished. So it's like it's taking school funding and it's distributing it in a way sort of like we do with the federal government, right? Like California is the fourth largest economy in the world, and that money funds all the red states who live in a deficit. And so it's sort of analogously like instead of hoarding the wealth and just keeping all of the wealth in the rich areas with respect to school, we've got to distribute that. We got to distribute that more equitably so that
Well, I I got you on this one. Okay. Um, Chicago school districts
Mhm,
are the are um are the highest per capita per student we pay out. But yet Chicago school districts have the lowest test scores, the highest dropout rates, but yet the we are paying per student the highest, okay,
mhm.
within the state itself. I mean, we are putting the most money into these students in the city of Chicago.
Okay.
However, we're failing them. And why is that? Why is that? It's because we give the Chicago Teachers Union control of that money. So how much money is actually going to the kids?
Well, but to your broader point, though, you're touching on the same problem that I'm touching on,
Mhm.
deprived resources.
Yep.
So
Yep. No,
if the money's not making it to the kids, it's the same issue.
exactly.
You gotta
It,
like
yep.
regulate it
No,
differently. But yes.
it's
So,
not making it where it needs to go. And we need to take out those middlemen. And what we also need to do is take out tenure, get rid of the
mhm.
bad teachers and find more good teachers,
Get
which
them
is
out of
very hard to do.
get them out of the rubber room.
Yes, basically. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I love that you and I have like contrasting and similar points of view on very contentious subjects. Um, but I certainly appreciate your story. Like I mean I it's one of those situations where I agree with you and I agree with me.
No,
You know what I mean?
but but this is because we we are open and we can see what truly is happening. He may have us reading like the charter and but we can put it into a leadership role and say, I can see this in business today.
Mhm,
And the thing is, you know, school for me is very, very important for any child. And that's the one thing that pisses me off is we are really doing our kids a huge disservice. My sister is a teacher and I talk to her all the time about this
mhm.
and it pisses her off. that you have a superintendent who will be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to basically go and just talk to other superintendents. And it's like, okay, so you're making $200,000 a year, and you've got teachers who make a pretty good penny, because my sister says she makes a pretty good penny for a teacher.
How long
Um,
how long has she been teaching now?
oh my goodness, she's been teaching 18 years.
That's why.
Yeah,
You
well,
get
no, yeah, but
your first year,
yeah,
second year teacher. These people are homeless. These two
right, right.
these
And the thing is, we have students who don't even speak English, so they're fighting that battle. Then now we have schools that are taking special education out. So they're putting kids who should be in a special education or learning disability classroom, and they're putting them in with the general public, which takes away from the kids who want to learn. So these teachers are now having to deal with behavioral issues because the superintendents, if they take this kid out of general population and put him into a different school, they don't get that money.
Mhm.
So now these kids are being looked at as commodities to these superintendents instead of a child who needs help. And these other kids are paying the price.
Yeah.
So to your topic, where do we draw the line?
Um, well, as far as I'm understanding, this seems like a very grassroots local legislation type of issue. And so we have to be in touch with what's happening in our local government and we have to vote
We
people in
do,
and
but
out.
we have parents who are coming over, okay, who aren't as educated about our political system, or who are still within, their own group and
Mhm.
their own, dealing with their own cultures and everything. And
Mhm.
they look at it as they would never hurt my child, they mean for the best. So I think we're looking at a system that's not quite in touch with reality of what's truly going on, with parents who are not quite how would I best put it?
In touch.
In touch, or fully educated about what is happening within the school,
Sure.
in the district. Um, but I mean, and that's the city of Chicago as well. They've always been told that white man bad, we know the union knows what's best for our kids. And they basically will, like, when they go on strike and everything, they hold these kids hostage. And
Sure.
what do the parents have but to agree with them, get them what they need? So they put people in power who agree with the teachers union.
I hear you.
So I mean, we really need to rethink a whole structural avenue that's working against what we truly know should be for the best for our educational system and these kids. Now, will our teacher appreciate what I'm saying on video here? I'm not sure, but it's not just about affirmative action. It's about a whole system that is no longer working for the kids, but for the people who were put in place to help our children um,
Sure.
move higher.
I hear you. I have a question, and do
Mhm.
you mind if I do a redirect?
No, sure, go ahead.
Okay. With respect to the website charter in the video, what were the visions and the accompanying things that you saw? And did you relate this to any of your own aspirations for your education? Like, what was your answer?
My answer was the ASU charter does envelop a large group. They want the best for everybody. That's why they brought online learning for older adults or for people who work who couldn't make it to their school. I
Mhm.
saw that when they want to incorporate everybody and give everybody an ASU experience, um, I saw within that my ability now to go to a school with an educational system that fits my dreams and my goals. My dreams and my goals is to be the best project manager within my organization that I can. And
Okay.
through ASU, their online system that they had put into place is helping me achieve that goal.
Nice. That's good. I like that. Um, so I think we're approaching about 90 minutes.
Yes,
So
we are.
my idea here is for discussion B, how about I just read my answers to you and then you read your answers to me?
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
I'll go first. I'll make it quick. What visions do you have for your future? 1 year from now. 1 year from now, I will be further along in my education with more insight on how to be a better leader, coach, partner, and best version of me. I will have a bigger role at work. My relationship with my family and partner will be stronger, and I will continue to make healthy decisions physically, emotionally, and fiscally. 5 years from now, I will be working in a people operations role, supporting the workforce of an organization. This organization will value its workforce and strive to bring fair pay, stability, and opportunity to its people. And I'll continue to coach, and in that leadership, help athletes find their motivation in what is possible. Coaching is something I'll probably do for the rest of my life. Challenges I will have to overcome to make these visions happen will be finishing school, seeking out opportunities in networking, receiving no for an answer in many of the places I'll aspire to work, um, seeking out internship opportunities, receiving my SHRM, my SHRM, and doing this while balancing it with my personal life and other things that are important to me. What was your answer to one?
So the visions I have for my future personally in 1 year, the visions I have 1 year from now is that I will be graduating with my BA in organizational leadership and project management. I will continue to grow within my company as a project manager. In 5 years from now, I look to be a technical project manager too, to be further along in my company, helping us grow and accomplish many more projects to put into my resume. I'm looking maybe to change direction going south, possibly be near my children a little bit, more. What challenges I must overcome to make these visions happen, finishing my last 5 classes here at ASU in order to graduate on time, and find a job that will let me work remotely in order for me to be nearer to my children.
I love that. Okay. So, number two, under the best of conditions, what vision would you wish to see for your team or workplace? So, for my cheerleading gym, for my coaching colleagues, 5 years from now, we will have successfully created a culture of excellence which will be self-perpetuating. This will be the product of several years of strong team placements, clearly defined and enforced policies, continued growth in coaching and capabilities, foresight, planning, models, taking risks, and a continuation of an already strong business model. So at my gym, we are a huge program, but we don't have like our coaching needs to be stronger. And that is gonna have to like we have to change the culture in our gym. Now the business model, the marketing, the sales funnel, amazing. It's the only reason why we're a huge program. But internally, the thing we actually do, the cheerleading, we're not so good at that right now. And so we have this big opportunity to like push the kids to be stronger athletes and perform at a higher level. And there's a good handful of core coaches that see this opportunity. And so we are answering that question every single day. And so 5 years from now, hopefully, we will be a contender and a force to be reckoned with at the competitive level. How about you?
Under the best conditions, the visions I see for my workplace, 1 to 5 years from now, is that I become the type of leader that helps lead my team into putting out products and finishing projects that will allow our company to grow, bring on more clients and customers, and work together as fluidly as we do now, even better.
Okay, that's cool. Let's see. Number three, if I could do blank, how would I begin? Is the one I chose. With my goal of people operations, aside from school, I can begin meeting more people in the industry and seeking out opportunities to work in the field. In terms of coaching, the first step is forecasting and planning. We need to enter into a division that we have not been in for 3 years. So there's an entire division that we haven't competed in because we haven't had a team for that division for about 3 years. So to build that team, we need to start modeling and forecasting who's in our gym and who can we put that on that team over the next couple of years. So those would be like my first steps. How about you?
I chose to start making my move a reality. My first step would be to definitely graduate first from ASU. And then my next step would be to talk to my boss, see if a remote position would be feasible here in my current company, and then start looking for an apartment.
Oh, that's very cool.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'm gonna do 4, 5, and 6 together and just make it super
Okay.
quick. Okay. My 20 to 40-year vision. 20 years from now, I want to be in a place to give. Work, it's routine. Partner, adventurous and interesting. Coaching, minimal but fulfilling. Stability, not a question. So all of those things are just kind of like a routine now. So I want to be in a place where I can look into my community and help. I want to work in the community sector and provide care and comfort to the people that live around me. That's kind of what I would want to do there. 5, my tombstone. If it said anything, I would hope that it would say this: shaped by the bitterness of life into a man who loved others. And then for 6, how will I challenge my process? I will challenge my process to become a lifelong learner. What I will do is have a commitment to relentless growth characterized by introspection, opportunity, failure, and love for others. Okay. How about you? What's your 4, 5, and 6?
Well, I had to skip 4 because 20 to 40 years, I'm going to be dead. So
You should just write that. Like, I'm going to be dead.
I did.
Okay, good. I like that. You'll appreciate that.
Number 5, I said, what do you want for what I want written in my obituary? A woman who never backed down from a challenge.
Yeah.
Somebody who always saw the good in people and always wanted the best for her children. And then 6, I have to stop because if I don't stop, I'll start crying. Uh, and number 6, I put, it's funny you should put lifelong learner because I always feel that you always have something to learn. And the moment you feel you know it all, you should give up.
You kind of do, don't you? Like
Yeah,
I already know. They're like, I'm done.
yeah.
I already
But
know it
I
all.
I I always am taking classes on LinkedIn. I joined their learning. They have little classes that you can take. But you should always challenge yourself to do something new
Agree.
because otherwise life is boring.
Mhm. Well, I wish we had more time to sit with those questions at the end here because I like your insight. I love hearing your commitment to your family because that
Yeah.
is kind of like the overarching theme that I see. It's like you are building not only opportunity for yourself, but really creating this opportunity to just be with the people that you love.
Oh my God. My kids are my life. And
Yes.
it is so hard, Michael, that they're not here.
Yeah.
But I once told somebody I have been a single mother for 20 plus years. It's just
Mhm.
been me and my kids. Their
Right.
father in and out, but when you can take a look at your children and say, if something, God forbid, were to happen to me, I know they would be fine. I know that they could live their lives and continue to grow and be the best that they are meant to be. I know I've done a good job.
Yes.
And
Well,
that's any parent.
yeah. Well, I'm sure you already have so much to be proud of. So
Oh, oh God.
yes.
Look I'm crying already. See, now stop.
Okay. Well, on that note, now that I've made you cry,
Thank you.
I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
But I enjoyed the meeting, and I will make sure to get both of these files uploaded and sent to you
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I'll get this meeting. I'll get you the link for this one so that we can have both the files and then we can get them both to Bettina so that she has everything. And I'll even save the transcript and I'm going to send her our transcript as well so that she has
okay,
that.
that sounds good. Alrighty. Well, Don, it was lovely speaking with you, and have a safe night. Stay warm. All of that. You are in Chicago. Must be really cold. And I'll talk to you
Actually,
soon.
it's
Okay.
kind of nice. It's not too bad. But let's start thinking about our next meeting date on what works best for you. I'm not sure about Bettina yet, so we'll just
Okay.
play it by ear with her.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna try to push for around the same time. But I can
Okay.
be flexible. So yeah. All right, Don, have a lovely evening.
You too. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.